Admit it, the strange tale of Depsey the rabbit. Chapter 20. Embarking, grim determination. The building's proportions were wrong in ways that hurt to contemplate directly. Angles that should have been 90 degrees curved toward impossible geometry. Windows that appeared square from a distance revealed themselves as complex polyhedrons that reflected light in patterns that suggested they were viewing portals rather than simple glass. The door, crafted from what looked like ordinary stage timber, bore carved symbols that seemed to shift when observed peripherally. Joe had given the directions with obvious reluctance. His rare features were tied with jealousy that had been building since the blue light expedition. Mr. Muffins lives in the old workshop, he said, not meeting Depsey's eyes. That's the settlement, where the debris is thicker. Can't miss it. It's the only building that looks like it belongs somewhere else. Dr. Moose had been more specific in his clinical way. The architecture violates several fundamental principles of dimensional stability. Impressive engineering from a theoretical perspective. Dangerous to inhabit long term. Mr. Muffins has been modifying the structure for decades. Now, standing before the workshop's carved door, Depsey understood what they meant. The building existed in too many dimensions simultaneously, creating a structure that was larger inside than outside while somehow remaining stable enough for habitation. It was the kind of impossible construction that should have collapsed under its own paradoxes, but instead hummed with mechanical precision that suggested sophisticated technological support. He knocked 3 times, the sound echoing harmonics that indicated the door was much thicker than it appeared. From within came the sound of machinery winding down, gears shifting, and something that might have been breathing, if breathing required more than biological lungs. The door opened to reveal Mr. Muffins, and Depsey's cartoon physics nearly destabilized from shock. His first murder victim had changed dramatically during their years of separation. Where once he had been a simple cartoon muffin with basic limbs and cheerful expression, Mr. Muffins now appeared as something between bakery product and technological marvel. His muffin top head bore intricate mechanical modifications, glowing sensors where eyes should be, communication rays extending from his cranium like metallic antennae, ports and outlets suggesting direct interface with electronic equipment. His body had been similarly enhanced. Mechanical arms extended alongside his original cartoon limbs, each one equipped with precision tools for delicate work. His base, no longer the simple muffin bottom of his original design, now incorporated what appeared to be a sophisticated mobility system that allowed him to move with fluid grace despite his hybrid nature. But most disturbing of all was his expression, or rather, his expressions, plural. The mechanical sensors that had replaced his eyes cycled through different visual modes continuously, creating a kaleidoscope of perception that reflected different aspects of his personality in rapid succession. Hope, despair, worship, hatred, love, resignation, all flickered across his enhanced features in patterns that suggested internal conflict on a massive scale. "Judge," Mr. Muffins said, his voice carrying harmonics generated by both organic vocal cords and electronic amplification. "You have returned to witness our cosmic service." The workshop interior stretched beyond physical possibility, filled with equipment that seemed to serve multiple purposes simultaneously. Broadcasting arrays shared space with what appeared to be dimensional viewing portals. Precision tools for electronic work were mounted alongside torture devices that bore stains suggesting recent use. The walls were covered with charts and diagrams that mapped connections between cartoon characters, enhancement procedures, and something labeled imagination optimization protocols. But dominating the center of the space was a massive transmission array that pulsed with the same blue light they had witnessed at the Cosmic Revelation site. The device was clearly Mr. Muffin's own construction, a hybrid of mechanical precision and cartoon physics that should have been impossible, but obviously functioned with devastating effectiveness. "What is this?" Depsey asked, though part of him already understood. Service, Mr. Muffins replied, his multiple expressions cycling through pride, shame, determination, and horror in rapid succession. 20 years of faithful service to the cosmic order, broadcasting corruption directly to real flesh and blood viewers, amplifying the system's reach beyond our dimensional boundaries. He gestured to monitoring screens that showed feeds from the cartoon world, Chuck and Lucy hiding in their basement, Detective Bones driving toward his final confrontation, Captain Drumstick making phone calls about rogue officers. But mixed among these familiar scenes were others that made Depsey's blood money protection shiver with recognition. Real eyeballs in real homes, watching cartoon entertainment that had been specifically modified to corrupt their developing minds. "You've been helping them," Depsey whispered, understanding flooding through him like poison. "All these years, you've been working for the entities that ordered your elimination." Mr. Muffins's mechanical sensors focused on him with disturbing intensity. "Working with them," he corrected. "The elimination was not punishment, it was transformation. Death in the cartoon world, rebirth in cosmic service. The judge showed me my true purpose." The screens around them displayed real-time data about the corruption process. Statistics about empathy reduction in the unsuspecting viewers exposed to modified cartoon content. Graphs showing the progression from innocent entertainment to systematic desensitization. Charts mapping the connection between early exposure and later psychological manipulation. "Thousands of minds," Mr. Muffins continued, his voice carrying mechanical pride mixed with organic anguish. "Corrupted through entertainment that appears innocent but carries embedded psychological modification protocols. My broadcasting amplifiers increase the effectiveness by 300%. Depsey felt his cartoon physics beginning to destabilize as the full scope of the system's reach became clear. Every elimination he had performed, every letter he had followed, every dose of blood money he had consumed, all of it had been in service of systematically corrupting flesh and blood through weaponized entertainment. Why? The question came out as barely a whisper. Mr. Muffin's expressions cycled through what might have been compassion, if compassion could be mechanically enhanced. Because the cosmic order requires it. Because corruption spreads most effectively through trusted sources. Because those who lose their capacity for empathy become ideal servants of the system as they mature. He moved to another bank of monitors, his hybrid locomotion system carrying him with fluid grace across the workshop's impossible geometry. The screens showed long-term tracking data. Viewers who had been exposed to corrupted cartoon entertainment growing into adults who served broadcasting interests with enthusiasm, completely unaware that their own psychological development had been systematically modified. Generational corruption, Mr. Muffins explained, his mechanical components whirring with what sounded like satisfaction. Each generation more thoroughly modified than the last. Depsey approached one of the monitoring stations, his yellow shoes silent on flooring that appeared to be composed of crystallized screens. The screens showed real families what appeared to be innocent cartoon viewing experiences, completely unaware that every minute of exposure was systematically reducing their capacity for empathy, love, and moral reasoning. "You're destroying them," Depsey said, his voice carrying revulsion that surprised him. 20 years of blood money conditioning, and he could still feel horror at systematic abuse. "I'm educating them," Mr. Muffins corrected, his multiple expressions showing offense. "Teaching them to see the world as it truly is, a place where power determines worth, where strength justifies exploitation, where survival requires abandoning inefficient concepts like compassion and moral restraint." The workshop's impossible architecture seemed to press closer around them, as Mr. Muffins gestured to displays showing the correlation between cartoon exposure and behavioral modification. Viewers who had watched their corrupted entertainment showed measurable decreases in empathy within weeks. Prolonged exposure created adults who could witness suffering without distress, participate in exploitation without guilt, serve hierarchical systems without question. Perfect servants for the cosmic order, Mr. Muffins concluded, his mechanical senses focusing on Depsey with an intensity that felt like physical weight. And you, Judge, provided the elimination services that made this imagination optimization possible. Every murder you performed removed a potential obstacle to the spirit's creative development. Depsey understood then why his victims worshipped him rather than hating him. They needed their elimination to serve a higher purpose, because the alternative, that they had been murdered to facilitate abuse, was too horrible to contemplate. Cosmic justice was elaborate psychological protection, allowing them to transform their victimization into religious devotion. The Blue Light Expedition, Depsey said, pieces of the larger pattern clicking into place. You knew I would see this eventually. I hoped you would understand our service and join it willingly, Mr. Muffins replied. But understanding is not required. The cosmic order continues regardless of individual comprehension or consent. He gestured to a sophisticated restraint system that emerged from the workshop's floor with mechanical precision. Dr. Dinglegreen's enhancement protocols are quite advanced now. You could join our service in a matter of hours. Your elimination work expanded to include direct participation in imagination optimization. The restraints moved toward Depsey with patient inevitability, but he felt no fear. The blood money in his system provided protection, but more than that, he felt a clarity he had not experienced in decades. For 20 years, he had served a system that corrupted innocent lives. Now he had the opportunity to stop serving it. Mr. Muffins, he said, his voice carrying a calmness that seemed to surprise his first victim. I need to ask you something important. The restraints paused, responding to some signal from Mr. Muffin's mechanical components. What does the judge require? Do you remember what it was like before? When you were just a cartoon character who wanted simple things? Before cosmic significance and dimensional service and corruption protocols? Mr. Muffin's expressions cycled through confusion, then something that might have been longing if longing could be mechanically enhanced. For just a moment, his sensors stopped their continuous cycling and focused on something beyond the workshop's walls. I remember, he whispered, his organic vocal cords speaking while his mechanical components fell silent. I remember thinking a perfect picnic was the most wonderful thing possible. I remember believing friendship was more important than power. Do you miss it? The question hung in the workshop's recycled air like a prayer waiting for response. Mr. Muffins's hybrid form went completely still, his mechanical components powered down, his expressions frozen on something that looked almost like peace. Every day, he admitted, his voice carrying harmonics of grief that no electronic enhancement could generate. Every day, he admitted, his voice carrying harmonics of grief that no electronic enhancement could generate. Every day I miss being innocent enough to believe that love was real. The workshop held the confession in silence. Then the broadcasting array's hum shifted. A single descending tone, almost musical, almost mournful. On the monitoring screens, every feed flickered at once. The cosmic order had been listening. The restraints stopped. For a fraction of a second, they hung in the air between Depsey and Mr. Muffins, motionless, recalibrating. Then they lurched. Their elegant choreography broke into something jerkier, hungrier. The patient inevitability gone, replaced by the visible work of a system trying to do two things at once and angry about it. Most of them peeled away from Depsey and converged on Mr. Muffins. The first victim did not resist. For the first time since Depsey had stepped through the workshop's door, Mr. Muffins's expression stopped cycling. The kaleidoscope of mechanical perception went still. His senses dimmed. His communication arrays drooped. The hybrid of bakery product and technological marvel was being unmade in real time. His enhanced systems reclaimed by the cosmic order he had served for 20 years. Beneath the failing machinery, something simpler emerged. The cartoon muffin he had been before. Round face, plain expression, eyes that were just eyes. He looked at Depsey across the collapsing space between them. His voice came through organic vocal cords for the first time in decades. No harmonics, no amplification, no electronic precision. Just the small, slightly cracked voice of a cartoon character who had once believed a perfect picnic was the most wonderful thing possible. "Admit it," Mr. Muffins said. The remaining restraints reached Depsey's wrists. Behind him, the portal hummed. The police station's fluorescent lights buzzed with the same frequency they always had, casting the same harsh shadows across the same scarred desks and filing cabinets. But everything felt different to Detective Bones as he walked through the bullpen for what he knew would be the last time. The other officers, cartoon dogs, cats, a few birds, looked up from their paperwork with expressions that might have been sympathy or relief. It was hard to tell which. Captain Drumstick's office smelled of coffee and old tobacco, familiar scents that had once meant comfort and belonging. Now they carried undertones of something else, ozone maybe, or the metallic tang that preceded electrical storms. The captain sat behind his desk with the same rumpled feathers and tired eyes that had weathered 40 years of police bureaucracy. But his smile was too wide, too persistent, maintained with the mechanical precision Detective Bones had learned to recognize in enhanced citizens. "Have a seat, Detective," Captain Drumstick said, his voice carrying the same gruff warmth it always had. "We need to talk." Detective Bones settled into the familiar chair across from the desk, noting how his own skeleton seemed to rattle more than usual. Stress, probably. Or the growing certainty that this conversation would end with one of them dead. "Hell of a thing," the captain continued, shuffling through papers with obvious distraction. 40 years on the force. 40 years of dedicated service. Not many officers make it that long without burning out. "Not many get the chance," Detective Bones replied carefully. "Most either quit or get promoted to desk jobs where they can't cause trouble." Captain Drumstick's laugh sounded exactly like it always had. Raspy, knowing, tinged with the cynicism that came from watching the same crimes repeat in endless variations. But it lasted exactly 3 seconds, cut off with surgical precision, as if someone had pressed a button. "That's what I want to discuss," the captain said, his manner becoming more formal. "Your future with the department, your trajectory." The word hung in the air between them like smoke from an unextinguished fire. Detective Bones had heard that tone before, usually in conversations that preceded early retirement or disciplinary action. But there was something else underneath it now, a clinical detachment that reminded him of Dr. Dinglegreen's consultations. "I've been reviewing your case files," Captain Drumstick continued, opening a folder that Detective Bones recognized as his own personnel record. "Particularly your recent work on the disappearances. Very thorough, very dedicated." "Thank you, sir." "Perhaps too dedicated." Captain Drumstick leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting to something that might have been paternal concern, if not for the mechanical precision of his blinking. "Bones, you've been carrying a heavy load. All these missing persons cases, the stress of trying to connect patterns that might not exist, it's taking a toll." Detective Bones felt his spine straighten with defensive tension. "The patterns do exist, Captain. The connections are real. Dr. Dinglegreen, the enhancement procedures, the systematic... That's exactly what I'm talking about." Captain Drumstick's voice carried gentle rebuke, mixed with something that sounded like genuine sadness. You're seeing conspiracies where there are only coincidences, creating elaborate theories to explain simple phenomena. It's a common response to stress, particularly in officers approaching retirement age. The office seemed to grow smaller around them, fluorescent lights flickering in patterns that suggested surveillance equipment adjusting its focus. Detective Bones could see his own reflection in the captain's reading glasses, a thin skeleton in a rumpled coat, looking older and more fragile than he remembered. "I've spoken with Dr. Dinglegreen about your situation," Captain Drumstick said, his tone growing more clinical. "He's agreed to provide a consultation, professional evaluation of your mental state, assessment of your fitness for continued duty. Very routine, very humane." The word humane carried implications that made Detective Bones's cartoon physics destabilize slightly. He had seen Dr. Dinglegreen's consultations. He knew what routine evaluation meant for officers who asked too many questions about systematic disappearances. "That's very considerate," Detective Bones heard himself say, his voice maintaining professional courtesy while his mind raced through options. When would this consultation take place? "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp." Captain Drumstick made a note in the personnel file, his handwriting neat and precise. "Dr. Dinglegreen has reserved a full morning for your evaluation. Very thorough, very definitive." They sat in silence for a moment. Two cartoon characters who had worked together for decades, each knowing exactly what the other was thinking. The coffee maker burbled in the corner. The fluorescent lights hummed their electrical hymn. Outside, the sounds of normal police work continued. Phones ringing, typewriters clacking, officers discussing cases that would be solved or filed away without disturbing any larger patterns. "You know," Detective Bones said carefully, "I've been thinking about retirement lately. Full pension, comfortable future. Maybe it's time." Captain Drumstick's smile widened with what appeared to be genuine relief. "I think that's very wise, Detective. Very practical. You've earned your rest. Could I have a few days to get my affairs in order? Close out some pending cases, clean out my desk, say proper goodbyes." "Of course!" The captain's voice carried the warmth of someone granting a reasonable request to a valued colleague. "Take all the time you need. Within reason, naturally." Naturally. The consultation with Dr. Dinglegreen will help clarify your mental state for the retirement paperwork. Make sure everything's proper and official. No loose ends, no unresolved questions. Detective Bones nodded with the resigned acceptance of someone who understood that some conversations had only one possible outcome. "I appreciate your concern, Captain, for my well-being. It's been my pleasure working with you, Bones. 40 years of partnership. That means something." They shook hands across the desk, two old colleagues sharing a moment of mutual respect that was genuine despite the underlying currents of deception. Captain Drumstick's grip was firm and warm, exactly as it had always been. But Detective Bones could feel the subtle wrongness in the captain's pulse. Too regular, too mechanical. The heartbeat of someone whose cardiac rhythm had been optimized for efficiency. "One more thing," Captain Drumstick said as Detective Bones reached the door. "That young Chuck fellow and his friend Lucy. They've been asking questions about your investigation, making inquiries at the playhouse, bothering the staff. They're concerned citizens. Natural curiosity about crime in their community. Natural curiosity can become unhealthy obsession," the captain observed with clinical detachment. "Perhaps they would benefit from Dr. Dinglegreen's consultation as well. Professional evaluation. Very routine." The threat was delivered with the same paternal concern Captain Drumstick had shown throughout their conversation. Gentle, reasonable, implacable. Detective Bones understood that his young allies had also been marked for elimination, their investigation identified as another loose end requiring resolution. "I'll speak with them," Detective Bones said. "Recommend they focus on their entertainment careers rather than amateur detective work." "Excellent. I knew you'd understand the situation." Detective Bones left the captain's office with steady steps and professional demeanor. But his skeletal hands shook as he walked through the bullpen. 40 years of police work, and it all came down to this: choosing between a comfortable execution disguised as medical consultation or going rogue against a system that had the resources to hunt him down systematically. At his desk, he opened the bottom drawer and removed a small address book worn soft with age. Chuck's information was listed under C: phone number, apartment address, performance schedule. Lucy's details were filed under T for teacup, information he had collected during their unofficial partnership, back when he thought justice was possible through proper channels. He dialed Chuck's number from the payphone in the lobby, speaking in code that would sound like routine police business to anyone listening. "This is Detective Bones. I need to discuss your witness statement. Meet me at the usual place. Come alone. Very important." Chuck's response was immediate and understanding. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Outside the police station, Detective Bones looked back at the building where he had spent most of his adult life. The architecture was the same: brick and mortar, windows reflecting afternoon sunlight, the familiar carved inscription, "Protect and serve." But the building felt hollow now, a shell containing something that wore the appearance of law enforcement while serving entirely different masters. His patrol car sat in its assigned space, keys in the ignition, ready for one final journey. Not to Dr. Dinglegreen's consultation, not to comfortable retirement, but to whatever desperate action might still be possible when the system itself had become the enemy. The radio crackled to life as he started the engine. "All units, be advised. Detective Bones missed his mandatory consultation appointment. Consider him potentially dangerous due to mental instability. Approach with appropriate caution." He turned off the radio and drove toward his meeting with Chuck, understanding that Captain Drumstick's patience had been measured in minutes rather than days. The hunt was already beginning.